Welcome dear students to lecture 4 of module 2. The objective of this lecture is to illustrate the principles of modern symmetric ciphers. For this purpose, we focus on the most widely used symmetric cipher, the data encryption standard DES. Although numerous symmetric ciphers have been developed since the introduction of DES, and although it is destined to be replaced by the advanced encryption standard AES, DES remains the most important such algorithm. Furthermore, a detailed study of DES provides an understanding of the principles used in other symmetric ciphers. Many symmetric block encryption algorithms in current use are based on a structure referred to as a Feazell block cipher. For that reason, it is important to examine the design features of the Feazell cipher. So we begin with the comparison of stream ciphers and the block ciphers. Then we discuss the motivation for the Feazell block cipher structure. So first let us see what is a stream cipher. A stream cipher is one that encrypts a digital data stream one bit or one byte at a time. Examples of a classical stream ciphers are the AutoCAD Wegener cipher and the Vernam cipher. In the ideal case, a one-time pad version of the Vernam cipher would be used, in which the key stream is as long as the plain text bit stream. If the cryptographic key stream is random, then this cipher is unbreakable by any means other than acquiring the key stream. However, the key stream must be provided to both users in advance via some independent and secure channel. This introduces insurmountable logistical problems if the intended data traffic is very large. Accordingly, for practical reasons, the bitstream generator must be implemented as an algorithm procedure so that the cryptographic bitstream can be produced by both users. So here in this figure you can see over here a bitstream generation algorithm is bitstream generator is a key control algorithm and must produce a bitstream that is cryptographically strong. Now the two users need only share the generating key and each can produce the key stream cipher. So here we have a bitstream generation algorithm and the plain text, then the encryption takes place and you have the ciphertext. In the decryption end, the ciphertext is given as an input, and again here also we have a bitstream generation algorithm which generates the key and the plain text is obtained. A block cipher is one in which a block of plain text is treated as a whole and used to produce a ciphertext block of equal length. Typically, a block size of 64 or 128 bits is used. As with stream cipher, the two users share a symmetric encryption key. You can check over here in the figure. This is the symmetric encryption key. The plain text is taken as a block. An encryption algorithm is applied and you get the ciphertext in B bits, that is a block. Similarly, if you want to go for decryption, so here the ciphertext is taken and the decryption algorithm is used, and this is the symmetric key shared and you obtain the plain text. Feazell proposed that we can approximate the ideal block cipher by utilizing the concept of a product cipher, which is the execution of two or more simple ciphers in sequence in such a way that the final result or product is cryptographically stronger than any of the component ciphers. The essence of the approach is to develop a block cipher with a key length of k bits and a block length of n bits, allowing a total of 2 to the power k possible transformations rather than 2 to the power n factorial transformations available with the ideal block cipher. So Fiesel proposed the use of cipher that alternates substitution and permutations. So what is this substitution and permutation? Substitution means each plain text elements or a group of elements is uniquely replaced by a corresponding ciphertext element or group of elements. Then we will see what is meant by permutation. It is a sequence of plain text elements is replaced by a permutation of that sequence. That is, no elements are added or deleted or replaced in the sequence. Rather, the order in which the elements appear in the sequence is changed. The terms diffusion and confusion were introduced by Claude Shannon to capture the two basic building blocks for any cryptographic system. Shannon's concern was to thwart cryptanalysis based on statistical analysis. Now let us assume that attacker has some knowledge of statistical characteristics of the plain text. For example, in a human readable message in some language, the frequency distribution of the various letters may be known, or there may be words or phrases likely to appear in the message. If these statistics are in any way reflected in the ciphertext, the cryptanalyst may be able to deduce the encryption key, part of the keys, or at least a set of keys likely to contain the exact key. In what Shannon refers to as a strongly ideal cipher, all statistics of the ciphertext are independent of the keys used. So Shannon suggested two methods for frustrating statistical cryptanalysis: diffusion and confusion. In diffusion, the statistical structure of the plain text is dissipated into long-range statistics of the ciphertext. This is achieved by having each plain text digit affect the value of many ciphertext digits. Generally, this is equivalent to having each ciphertext digit to be affected by many plain text digits. In a binary block cipher, diffusion can be achieved by repeatedly performing some permutation on the data followed by applying a function to that permutation. The effect is that bits from different positions in the original plain text contribute to a single bit of ciphertext. Every block cipher involves a transformation of a block of plain text into a block of ciphertext, where the transformation depends on the key. The mechanism of diffusion seeks to make the statistical relationship between the plain text and the ciphertext as complex as possible in order to thwart attempts to deduce the key. On the other hand, confusion seeks to make the relationship between the statistics of the ciphertext and the value of the encryption key as complex as possible, again to thwart the attempts to discover the key. Thus, even if the attacker can get some handle on the statistics of the ciphertext, the way in which the key was used to produce that ciphertext is so complex as to make it difficult to deduce the key. This is achieved by the use of complex substitution algorithm. In contrast, a simple linear substitution function would add little confusion. So let us learn about the Fiesel cipher structure. So here the left hand side of the figure, that is this, depicts the structure of the Fiesel proposed for encryption. The plain inputs to the encryption algorithm are plain text of block of length 2W bits and a key K. The plain text block is divided into exactly two halves, L0 and R0. The two halves of the data pass through n number of rounds. Now in this case we can see 16 rounds. It can be any number of rounds. Each round I has an input Li I minus 1 and I minus 1 derived from the previous round, as well as a subkey ki, which is derived from the main key k. In general, the subkeys ki are different from k and from each other. Now in this figure, you can observe there are 16 rounds. All rounds have the same structure. It is the same procedure is followed in all the rounds. A substitution is performed on this left half of the data. A substitution is performed. Now this is done by applying a round function f to the right half of the data. You can observe the key also over here. This is derived from the overall key k. So once the round function is performed, then a permutation is performed by exchanging the left and the right bit over here. So the right bit is taken as the left bit, and after the substitution, whatever output you get which is performed on the left bit, that will be taken as the right bit for the next stage of operation. So this structure is a particular form of the substitution permutation network proposed by Shannon. So similarly, in this way 16 rounds are performed and finally you get the ciphertext. On the right hand side, what you observe is the decryption process. So we start with the ciphertext again, which is divided into exact halves. Then on the right half, the round function is performed. The key is taken in the reverse order. Now here, that is the 16th key. 16 rounds are there. So subkey 16 subkey is taken and permutation is performed on the left bit over here. That is here the right bit is taken here as a left bit, and after the substitution of the left bit by using the round function, whatever output you get, that is taken as the right bit. So on the 16 rounds are carried and finally we get the plain text as the output. This is the Feasel cipher structure for encryption and decryption process. The exact realization of a Feasel network depends on the choice of the following parameters and design features. So the first one is a block size. Larger block sizes mean greater security but reduced encryption or decryption speed for a given algorithm. The greater security is achieved by greater diffusion. Traditionally, a block size of 64 bits has been considered a reasonable trade-off and was nearly universal in block cipher design. However, the new AES uses a 128-bit block size. Next is the key size. Larger key size means greater security but again may decrease encryption or decryption speed. The greater security is achieved by greater resistance to brute force attacks and greater confusion. Key sizes of 64 bits or less are now widely considered to be inadequate, and 128 bits has become a common size. Next is the number of rounds. The essence of the Feasel cipher is that a single round offers inadequate security, but that multiple rounds offer increasing security. A typical size is 16 rounds. Next is subkey generation algorithms. Greater complexity in this algorithm should lead to greater difficulty of cryptanalysis. So here for 16 rounds we have 16 subkeys. So every time a new subkey is generated. Next is a round function. Again, greater complexity generally means greater resistance to cryptanalysis. So the round function here is used same in every step, but the subkey used for this round function is different in every step. There are two other considerations in the design of a Feasel cipher. The first one is a fast software encryption or decryption. In many cases, encryption is embedded in applications or utility functions in such a way as to preclude a hardware implementation. Accordingly, the speed of execution of the algorithm becomes a concern. Next is ease of analysis. Although we would like to make our algorithm as difficult as possible to cryptanalyze, there is great benefit in making the algorithm easy to analyze. That is, if the algorithm can be concisely and clearly explained, it is easier to analyze that algorithm for cryptanalytic vulnerabilities and therefore develop a higher level of assurance as to its strength. DS, for example, does not have an easily analyzed functionality. Now let us learn about the data encryption standard. The most widely used encryption scheme is based on the data encryption standard DES adopted in 1977 by the National Bureau of Standards, now the National Institute of Standards and Technology NIST, as Federal Information Processing Standard 46. The algorithm itself is referred to as the Data Encryption Algorithm DEA. For DES, data are encrypted in 64-bit blocks using a 56-bit key. The algorithm transforms 64-bit input in a series of steps into a 64-bit output. The same steps with same key are used to reverse the encryption. Now let us see the overall scheme for DS encryption. So in this figure, the scheme is illustrated. In this case, the plain text must be of length 64-bit and the key also has to be, the input key what is taken is 64 but we need a 56-bit in length. Now looking at the left side of the figure, we can see that the processing of the plain text proceeds in three phases. First, the 64-bit plain text is passed through an initial permutation. Here, the bits are rearranged to produce a permuted output. This is followed by a phase of 16 rounds here, which of the same function, which involves both the permutation and substitution techniques. Here it is where the Feasel structure is used over here. The output of the last round consists of 64 bits here. The left and the right half of the outputs are swapped to produce the pre-output. Finally, the pre-output is passed through the permutation, that is inverse initial permutation, to produce a 64-bit cipher text. The right hand side of the portion, that is here, this shows the way in which a 56-bit key is used. Initially, the key is passed through a permutation function. Then for each of the 16 rounds, a subkey Ki is produced by the combination of a left circular shift and a permutation. The permutation function is the same for each round, but a different subkey is produced because of the repeated shifts of the key bits. So here we start with the 64-bit key. Then after the permuted choice 1, we get a 56-bit. Then a left circular shift is performed. Again a 56-bit key is produced. Then a permuted choice 2 is produced and a 48-bit key is produced. So this is how in every step a subkey is generated for all the 16 rounds. Next we will see what is meant by the avalanche effect. A desirable property of any encryption algorithm is that a small change in either the plain text or the key should produce a significant change in the cipher text. In particular, a change in one bit of the plain text or one bit of the key should produce a change in many bits of the cipher text. This is referred to as the avalanche effect. Now let us see about the strength of DES. the use of 56-bit keys. With a key length of 56 bits, there are 2 to the power 56 possible keys, which is approximately 7.2 into 10 to the power 16 keys. Thus, on the face of it, a brute force attack appears impractical. Assuming that an average half the key space has to be searched, a single machine perform 1 DS encryption per microsecond would take more than 1000 years to break the cipher. However, the assumption of one encryption per microsecond is overly conservative. As far back as 1977, Diffie and Hellman postulated that the technology existed to build a parallel machine with 1 million encryption devices, each of which would perform one encryption per microsecond. This would bring the average search time down to 10 hours. The authors estimated that the cost would be about $20 million in 1977. DS finally and definitively proved insecure in July 1998 when the Electronic Frontier Foundation announced that it had broken a DS encryption using a special purpose DES cracker machine that was built for less than $250,000. The attack took less than 3 days. The EFF has published a detailed description of the machine, enabling others to build their own cracker. And of course, hardware prices will continue to drop as speed increases, making DS virtually worthless. Fortunately, there are a number of alternatives to DS, the most important of which are AES and triple DS. So next we can see the table in which the time taken for the decryption process is known for different uh, algorithms. Now in this table you can observe the average time required for the exhaustive key search. Now in case if the key size is 56, now that is a DES cipher, number of alternative keys are 7.2 in 10 to the power 16. Okay, so the time required at a speed of 10 to the power 3 decryption per second is 1 hour. Now in case if the cipher is AES, then the time required is 5.3 into 10 to the power 17 years. If it is triple DS, it is 5.8 into 10 to the power 29 years. Okay, so now this is why now DS is not used. Now majorly what is used is AES and triple DS are used nowadays. Next is the timing attacks. A timing attack is one in which information about the key or the plain text is obtained by observing how long it takes a given implementation to perform decryptions on various ciphertext. A timing attack exploits the fact that an encryption or decryption algorithm often takes slightly different amounts of time on different inputs. Although much progress has been made in designing block ciphers that are cryptographically strong, the basic principles have not changed all that much since the work of Feazell and the DS design team in early 1970s. It is useful to begin this discussion by looking at the published design criteria used in the DES effort. So we looked at the three critical aspects of block cipher design: the number of rounds, design of function f, and key scheduling. So first we'll see about the number of rounds. The greater the number of rounds, the more difficult it is to perform cryptanalysis, even for a relatively weak round function f. The criteria should be that the number of rounds is chosen so that known cryptanalytic efforts require greater effort than a simple brute force key search attack. Next is the design of function f. The heart of a Feazell block cipher is the function f, which provides the element of confusion in a Feazell cipher. One obvious criteria is that f be nonlinear. The more nonlinear f, the more difficult any type of cryptanalysis will be. A final area of block cipher design and one that has received less attention is the key schedule algorithm. With any feasible block cipher, the key is used to generate one subkey for each round. In general, we would like to select subkeys to maximize the difficulty of reducing individual subkeys and the difficulty of working back to the main key. So in this lecture, we started with the comparison between the stream cipher and the block ciphers. Then we saw the feasible structure and how DS was developed on the basis of feasible structure. And finally, we have seen the block cipher design principles. Thank you, dear students.